You know that moment when you realize your husband's new gardening hobby isn't about cultivating prize-winning hydrangeas, but about tending to another woman's, well, everything? Yeah, that's my life right now. Apparently, Thaddeus Wilson, my husband of 18 glorious, soul-crushing years, decided to expand his horticultural horizons into Juniper Davis's backyard. And by backyard, I mean her entire existence. Juniper Davis, mind you, is not just some random woman he met at a Home Depot aisle while debating the merits of organic fertilizer. Oh no, Juniper Davis is my best friend. Or, she was. Now, she's just collateral damage in my personal apocalypse, a human weed I'm about to pull by the roots. And trust me, I'm bringing the industrial-strength weed killer. Apparently, finding your husband's secret garden wasn't a metaphor for his emotional growth, but for his literal affair with my best friend. Let me paint you a picture. It was a Tuesday evening, just a few weeks ago, a typical suburban twilight in Maple Creek, Connecticut. The kind of evening where the only drama you expect is whether the HOA will finally crack down on the Johnsons' rogue flamingo lawn ornaments. Thaddeus, my ever-so-predictable husband, walked in, humming some tune I didn't recognize, and smelling distinctly of lavender, not his usual Old Spice or whatever manly scent he usually doused himself in. This was a soft, floral, almost cloying lavender. And then, the glitter. Oh, the glitter. A tiny, iridescent speck caught in the stubble of his jawline, sparkling like a rogue fairy had just vomited on him. My internal monologue, usually a witty, sarcastic commentary on the mundane, suddenly went full CSI, lavender and glitter. My mind immediately flashed to Juniper Davis. Juniper, with her perfectly manicured nails, her organic lavender sachets, and her inexplicable love for all things sparkly, even for a Tuesday afternoon gardening session. My stomach did a little flip, a nauseating pirouette that told me this wasn't just a rogue fairy. This was a full-blown pixie dust trail leading straight to my impending doom. My name is Rosemary Miller, I'm 42, and I'm a freelance graphic designer who apparently specializes in designing the perfect revenge plot. For 18 years, I've been Mrs. Thaddeus Wilson, living the American dream in our perfectly beige suburban home, raising our two perfectly normal teenagers, Avery, 16, and Logan, 14. We had the whole white picket fence, the two-car garage, the annual family vacation to Disney World, the works. And now? Now I was staring at a glittery, lavender-scented betrayal that felt like a bad rom-com plot twist. But here's the thing about me. I don't do tears. I do strategy. I don't do victimhood. I do poetic justice, served with a side of scathing sarcasm. And I promise you, this story isn't about me crying into a pint of Ben & Jerry's. It's about me orchestrating a symphony of chaos, a public unmasking so deliciously humiliating, it would make a reality TV producer weep with joy. The question wasn't if I would expose them, but how. And oh, did I have a plan. A plan so devious, so perfectly American in its suburban brutality, it deserved its own Netflix special. The first thought, after the initial wave of nausea, was, is this a joke? Am I being punked? But the glitter wasn't going anywhere, and the lavender scent clung to him like a cheap suit. I did what any self-respecting woman in my position would do. I went full-on detective mode. No, I didn't hire a private investigator. I had something better, a lifetime of knowing Thaddeus's predictable habits and Juniper's even more predictable ones. Plus, I had access to their shared Google Calendar, which, bless their cheating hearts, they hadn't bothered to make private. Turns out, Thaddeus's late-night client calls often coincided with Juniper's yoga retreats, or Cyrus's, her husband's, history club meetings. The puzzle pieces, once scattered and seemingly unrelated, were now fitting together with the terrifying precision of a perfectly designed infographic. And the picture they painted? A masterpiece of marital infidelity, framed by my supposed best friend's prize-winning petunias. My next step? Confirming the details. Because if I was going to blow up my life, I was going to do it with maximum impact and zero collateral damage to my own reputation. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my narrative. And trust me, the narrative was about to get spicy. The next few days were a blur of calculated casualness. "Oh, Thaddeus, you smell so fresh," I'd say, inhaling deeply, a subtle smirk playing on my lips. He'd just grunt, oblivious, probably thinking I was finally appreciating his newfound commitment to personal hygiene. Meanwhile, I was cross-referencing his late meetings with Juniper's sudden errands. It was all there, laid out like a suburban treasure map, except the treasure was a giant, steaming pile of betrayal. They were meeting at the Oak and Ivy Bistro, a quaint, slightly overpriced spot downtown, known for its artisanal cheese boards and discreet booths. How utterly cliché. I almost rolled my eyes so hard they'd get stuck. The thought of them, whispering sweet nothings over a charcuterie platter, while I was at home, making sure Avery finished her calculus homework and Logan didn't set the kitchen on fire with his science experiments, was enough to make me want to buy a flamethrower. But that wasn't my style. My style was surgical precision. My style was making them regret every single lavender-scented, glitter-dusted moment. I remembered a conversation with Juniper just last week. She was complaining about Cyrus, her sweet, oblivious history teacher husband, being so boring and always grading papers. She even mentioned how she just needed a little excitement. "Oh, honey, you're about to get a whole damn fireworks display." I also remembered how she'd always been a little competitive, always trying to one-up me, whether it was her perfectly manicured lawn or her perfectly curated Instagram feed. This wasn't just about Thaddeus. This was about Juniper, the woman who'd shared my deepest secrets, my triumphs, my failures, now sharing my husband's bed. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated audacity. My blood wasn't boiling. It was chilling, crystallizing into a perfectly sharp shard of ice, ready to pierce through their little love bubble. I spent hours on my laptop, not designing logos, but designing their downfall. I meticulously checked their schedules, cross-referencing their alone time with Cyrus's known commitments. Cyrus, bless his naive heart, was a creature of habit. Every Friday evening, he had his Ancient Civilizations movie night with his fellow history buffs at the community center. This was my golden ticket. This was the window. This was the moment I would turn their secret rendezvous into a public spectacle. Because if you're going to be a hot mess in the suburbs, you might as well make it a train wreck for everyone to see. I wasn't just going to spill the tea, I was going to throw the entire teapot, scalding hot, directly into their faces. And I was going to enjoy every single drop. The stage was set. The players were unknowingly in position. And I, Rosemary Miller, was about to direct the most dramatic, darkly comedic play of their lives. The days leading up to D-Day, or as I affectionately called it, Doomsday for the Davises and Wilsons, were a masterclass in passive-aggressive performance art. Thaddeus, still radiating that faint lavender aura, would occasionally ask, "Everything all right, honey? You seem thoughtful." Thoughtful? Oh, I was thoughtful, all right. I was thoughtfully plotting the complete demolition of his carefully constructed double life. I'd just smile, a little too sweetly, and say, "Just thinking about how much I appreciate you, darling. You're such a pillar of our community." He'd puff out his chest, completely missing the subtext that he was about to become a pillar of shame. Juniper, on the other hand, was a different beast. She'd call, chirpy as ever, asking if I wanted to grab a Starbucks. "Oh, Rosemary, I just love our little coffee dates. You're such a good listener." And I was listening to her complain about Cyrus, about her empty nest syndrome. Avery and Logan were still firmly nested, thank you very much, and about how she felt unseen. Unseen? Honey, you're about to be seen by everyone within a 5-mile radius, including your unsuspecting husband. I'd nod, sip my iced latte, and offer vague, supportive platitudes like, "Oh, Juniper, you're a force of nature." Internally, I was picturing her as a force of nature about to be hit by a Category 5 hurricane. It was giving schadenfreude. The microaggressions, once subtle, now felt like neon signs flashing cheater every time they spoke. Thaddeus would complain about my lack of spontaneity. Juniper would lament how some marriages just lose their spark. I'd just nod, a serene smile plastered on my face, knowing that their spark was about to ignite a dumpster fire of epic proportions. I even started leaving little clues around the house, just to see if Thaddeus would notice. A single, forgotten lavender sachet on his nightstand. A small, almost invisible sprinkle of glitter on his favorite armchair. He didn't. Not a single flicker of recognition. Men, bless their oblivious hearts. It was almost comical, his utter blindness to the impending train wreck. My children, Avery and Logan, were, thankfully, oblivious to the marital melodrama unfolding around them. Avery was consumed by her TikTok dances and college applications, while Logan was deep into his latest video game obsession. Their innocence was a shield, protecting them from the toxic cloud of betrayal that hung over our house. And that, more than anything, fueled my resolve. This wasn't just about me. This was about protecting their sense of stability, even if it meant blowing up the foundation to rebuild it stronger. The plan was simple, elegant, and utterly devastating. I picked a Friday evening, the 22nd of August, the Oak and Ivy Bistro, 7 p.m. Their usual time, their usual table, according to my meticulous research. I then called Cyrus Johnson, Juniper's husband. Cyrus, darling, it's Rosemary. Listen, Thaddeus and I were thinking of trying that new bistro, the Oak and Ivy, this Friday. And we thought, wouldn't it be just divine if we made it a double date? You know, just like old times. Cyrus, bless his earnest history teacher soul, was thrilled. Oh, Rosemary, that sounds wonderful. Juniper's been saying she needs a night out, and my Ancient Civilizations movie night is canceled this week. Perfect timing. He was practically vibrating with excitement. I almost felt a pang of guilt. Almost. But then I remembered the lavender and the glitter, and the pang vanished, replaced by a steely resolve. And Cyrus, I added, lowering my voice conspiratorially, Juniper can be a little sensitive, right? And this whole thing is a bit of a hot mess. So how about we make it a surprise for her? Just a casual dinner, no pregame anxiety. You know, like, oh, look who's here. It might make it easier for her to process. Less confrontational, more organic. I practically tasted the irony. So don't tell her, okay? And maybe you could meet me right outside the bistro at, say, 6:55 p.m.? Thaddeus is usually a little late. You know how he is with his important calls, so we can grab a good table together. This was crucial. I needed Cyrus to walk in with me, not wander in alone and potentially miss the grand reveal. The day of the big show, I felt a strange mix of nerves and exhilaration. It was like preparing for a major presentation, but instead of a PowerPoint, I was delivering a live, unscripted drama. I dressed carefully, a sleek black dress that screamed, I'm here to collect what's mine, not, I'm a heartbroken wife. My hair was perfectly coiffed, my makeup impeccable. I looked like a woman who had her life together, even if it was about to explode into a million pieces. Thaddeus, oblivious as ever, complimented my dress. Going somewhere fancy, honey? He asked as he grabbed his keys, clearly preparing for his own fancy rendezvous. Oh, just out, I replied, a mischievous glint in my eye. You never know who you might run into. He just chuckled, probably thinking I was going to a girls' night at the country club. I drove to the Oak and Ivy Bistro, my heart doing a little tango in my chest. The valet took my car, and I stood outside, waiting. The evening air was crisp. The fairy lights strung around the bistro entrance twinkled, creating a deceptively romantic ambiance. At precisely 6:53 p.m., Cyrus Johnson's sensible sedan pulled up. He looked genuinely happy, a rare sight for a man who spent his days dissecting ancient empires. He was wearing a slightly rumpled blazer, probably his date night best. Rosemary, you look stunning, he exclaimed, ever the gentleman. Ready for some fun? Oh, Cyrus, I said, linking my arm through his. You have no idea how much fun we're about to have. This is going to be a night for the history books. He laughed, completely unaware of the historical significance he was about to witness. We walked towards the entrance, a perfectly innocent, unsuspecting duo. My heart hammered, but my face was a mask of serene anticipation. This was it, the moment of truth, the moment where the curtain would rise on their little charade. And I was holding the remote control. The thought of Juniper's face, of Thaddeus's stunned expression, was almost too delicious to bear. This wasn't just a dinner. It was an intervention. A public, humiliating, utterly unforgettable intervention. And I couldn't wait to see the look on their faces when they realized their secret garden was about to be bulldozed. As Cyrus and I stepped inside the Oak and Ivy bistro, the soft murmur of conversations and clinking glasses filled the air. My eyes, however, were laser-focused. I scanned the room, past the couples tucked into cozy booths, past the bar where a few singles were attempting to look sophisticated, and then I saw them. Table 5, tucked away in a dimly lit corner, just as I'd predicted. Thaddeus, looking far too comfortable, leaning across the table, his hand resting on Juniper's. And Juniper, giggling, her head thrown back, her signature lavender scarf draped artfully around her neck. They looked like something out of a bad Hallmark movie, all soft lighting and illicit whispers. My internal monologue kicked into overdrive. Oh, you two are just precious, like two lovebirds, utterly unaware that a hawk is about to swoop down and snatch your worms. Cyrus, still oblivious, tugged gently on my arm. Should we find a hostess, Rosemary? He asked, his voice cheerful. No, Cyrus, I said, a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes playing on my lips. I think I see our table. Right over there. I steered him, ever so subtly, towards table 5. With each step, my heart rate accelerated, a drum solo building to a crescendo. I could almost hear the dramatic music swelling. This was better than any reality show. This was my reality show, and I was the executive producer. As we got closer, Juniper looked up first. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of suburban cheer, widened in a cartoonish gasp. Her smile faltered, then vanished completely, replaced by a look of abject horror. Thaddeus, slower on the uptake, followed her gaze. His face, usually so composed and confident, went from a pleasant shade of pink to a ghostly white. His jaw dropped, and he looked like a fish out of water, gasping for air. It was a masterpiece of human panic, and I savored every millisecond. Thaddeus? Juniper? Cyrus said, his voice laced with confusion, a slight frown creasing his brow. What a coincidence. We were just about to sit down. Fancy meeting you two here? He beamed, completely missing the death stares Thaddeus and Juniper were exchanging. The frantic, silent communication of two deer caught in headlights. I squeezed Cyrus's arm gently. Oh, it's no coincidence, darling, I purred, my voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. I invited Cyrus here for a little surprise double date. Didn't I, Thaddeus? I turned my gaze to my husband, my eyes locked onto his, a silent challenge in their depths. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, a very well-dressed, very angry ghost. Juniper, ever the actress, tried to recover. Rosemary! Cyrus, what a surprise! We were just catching up. Thaddeus was just telling me about his new client. Her voice was a shaky whisper, her eyes darting between me and Thaddeus, a frantic plea for him to play along. But Thaddeus was frozen, a deer in the headlights, his brain apparently short-circuiting. Cyrus, however, was starting to put the pieces together. The way Thaddeus's hand was still on Juniper's, the way Juniper was practically hyperventilating, the way I was looking at them with the intensity of a predator. His innocent smile slowly faded, replaced by a look of dawning comprehension, then disbelief, then a slow, simmering rage. "Catching up?" he repeated, his voice dangerously low. He looked at Juniper's hand, still intertwined with Thaddeus's, then back at their faces. "What exactly are you two catching up on?" This was the moment. The beautiful, chaotic, utterly satisfying moment. I took a deep breath, and then, with the calm of a seasoned narrator, I decided to help Cyrus connect the dots. "Well, Cyrus," I began, my voice clear and steady, "it seems Thaddeus has developed a rather intimate relationship with Juniper's garden. And by garden I mean, well, you know, her entire life." I paused for dramatic effect, letting the words hang in the air like a noxious cloud. Apparently, my husband's work trips were actually job interviews for a new family, and Juniper here was the top candidate. The silence in the bistro was deafening. Every head at nearby tables seemed to turn, drawn by the sudden, palpable tension. Thaddeus finally found his voice, a strangled croak. "Rosemary, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just spilling the tea, darling," I replied, a wicked grin spreading across my face. "And it's piping hot. Wouldn't you agree, Juniper? Or should I say, lavender?" I emphasized the last word, watching Juniper visibly flinch. The glitter on Thaddeus's collar, which I had subtly flicked onto him earlier, seemed to shimmer in the dim light, a tiny, incriminating beacon. Cyrus, bless his heart, was still processing. He looked at Juniper, his wife of 15 years, the mother of his children, the woman he trusted implicitly. Then he looked at Thaddeus, his neighbor, his friend, the man he'd shared Super Bowl parties with. And then, the dam broke. His face, usually so gentle, contorted into a mask of pure fury. "Juniper? Is this true? Are you sleeping with Thaddeus?" Juniper burst into tears. A pathetic, theatrical display. "Cyrus, no! It's not what it looks like! Rosemary's exaggerating!" "Exaggerating?" I scoffed, a single perfectly manicured eyebrow arching. "Oh, honey, I'm just getting started. Shall I pull up the Google Calendar invites for your yoga retreats that coincided with Thaddeus's late client meetings? Or perhaps the credit card statements for the business dinners at this very bistro? Or maybe we can talk about the lavender perfume and the glitter he's been bringing home? Because, let me tell you, my dear husband doesn't usually smell like a Yankee Candle factory exploded on him." Cyrus, now fully enraged, stood up, knocking his chair over with a loud clatter. You cheated on me? With him?" He pointed a trembling finger at Thaddeus, who was now shrinking in his seat, looking utterly pathetic. This was the beautiful chaos I had envisioned. The absolute, unadulterated public humiliation. It was better than I could have ever planned. And the best part? I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't shed a single tear. I was just a calm, composed woman, narrating the absurd downfall of two utterly foolish people. The show had just begun, and the audience, both planned and accidental, was captivated. This was the kind of drama that would be talked about at every PTA meeting and country club brunch for years to come. And I, Rosemary Miller, was the star. The bistro erupted. Cyrus, a man usually as mild-mannered as a librarian, transformed into a raging bull. "You snake!" he bellowed at Thaddeus, his voice echoing through the stunned silence that had fallen over the restaurant. "You came into my home, ate my potluck casseroles, and then you defiled my marriage?" He lunged across the table, grabbing Thaddeus by the lapels of his expensive suit. Thaddeus, still in shock, could only stammer, "See, Cyrus, wait. Let's talk about this." "Talk about what, Thaddeus?" Cyrus roared, his face beet red. "About how you've been cultivating a secret garden in my wife's, well, you know. While I was grading papers and thinking you were my friend?" He punctuated his sentence by shoving Thaddeus back into his seat, sending a breadbasket flying. Juniper, meanwhile, had dissolved into a full-blown snot and tears meltdown. "Cyrus, please, don't make a scene," she wailed, trying to grab his arm. A scene? Cyrus turned his fury on her. You think this is a scene, Juniper? What about the scene you've been making behind my back? With him? He gestured wildly at Thaddeus, who was now attempting to make himself invisible under the table. I, Rosemary Miller, stood there, a picture of serene composure amidst the chaos, like a conductor admiring her orchestra. I even took a sip of water from a nearby glass, just to emphasize my detachment. Oh, don't worry, Juniper, I said, my voice calm, cutting through her histrionics. The scene is just getting started. I believe there's a waiter heading our way. Perhaps he can bring us some popcorn? A waiter, indeed, was hurrying towards us, looking utterly bewildered. Other diners were openly staring, some with their phones out, probably live-streaming the suburban drama. This was better than any episode of Real Housewives of Maple Creek. Cyrus, in a fit of pure, unadulterated rage, picked up his glass of water and, with a swift, decisive motion, splashed it directly into Juniper's face. You disgust me, he spat, droplets of water clinging to her mascara-streaked cheeks. Juniper gasped, sputtering. My hair! Cyrus, you just ruined my blowout! I almost clapped. Her priorities, even in the face of utter marital destruction, were perfectly aligned with her superficial existence. Oh, honey, I chimed in. I think your marriage is a little more ruined than your blowout. Just a thought. Thaddeus, finally finding some semblance of self-preservation, scrambled out of his seat. Rosemary, we need to go home. Now. He tried to grab my arm, but I elegantly sidestepped him. Oh no, darling, I said, my voice sweet but firm. My home is no longer your safe haven. And this little performance? It's far from over. Cyrus, I believe you have some questions for your wife. And Thaddeus, I believe you have some explaining to do. To everyone. I gestured vaguely at the now packed bistro, where people were openly whispering and pointing. Cyrus, fueled by righteous indignation, grabbed Juniper's arm. We're going home, and you're going to explain everything. He dragged her, still sobbing dramatically, towards the exit. Juniper cast a desperate, pleading look at Thaddeus, who could only offer a pathetic shrug. It was glorious. Thaddeus turned to me, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Rosemary, how could you do this? How could I do this? I repeated, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. Oh, Thaddeus, you really are a piece of work. You think I'm the villain here? You think I'm the one who broke our vows? You think I'm the one who brought lavender and glitter home from another woman's secret garden? I leaned in, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, but loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. I'm just the messenger, darling. Karma decided to become my business partner tonight, and she's a real stickler for poetic justice. I then pulled out my phone, casually scrolling through it. Oh, by the way, Thaddeus, I said, loud enough to be heard. I've already spoken to our family lawyer, Brenda from Miller & Associates. She's quite excited about the evidence I've gathered. Apparently, a public confession of adultery, witnessed by an entire restaurant, is considered quite compelling in Connecticut divorce proceedings, especially when it involves a significant financial settlement. His face went from white to green. The mention of lawyers and money hit him harder than any physical blow. He stammered, Divorce? Rosemary, you can't be serious. Oh, I'm dead serious, Thaddeus, I replied, tucking my phone back into my purse. Turns out, till death do us part doesn't cover finding your replacement. Especially not one who smells like a craft store and lives 2 cul-de-sacs over. Enjoy your artisanal cheese board, darling. You'll be paying for it with alimony. I turned on my heel, leaving him standing there, a solitary figure of pathetic despair, surrounded by the wreckage of his exposed affair. As I walked towards the exit, a few diners gave me sympathetic nods, some even a discreet thumbs up. I felt a surge of triumph, a wave of vindication so powerful it almost made me dizzy. This wasn't just revenge. It was a reclamation, a reclaiming of my dignity, my self-worth, and my future. And it felt absolutely, deliciously, perfectly, American. The Oak and Ivy Bistro would never be the same, and neither would Thaddeus Wilson. The fallout from Bistrogate, as it was quickly dubbed by the Maple Creek gossip mill, was everything I had hoped for, and more. Thaddeus, the once confident sales executive, found his reputation in tatters. His company, a tech firm that prided itself on family values, quietly restructured his position. Turns out, being publicly outed as a philanderer isn't great for closing big deals. He moved into a sad little apartment downtown, a far cry from our spacious suburban home, and spent his days trying to salvage his career and his dignity, neither of which seemed very salvageable. He looked like a deflated balloon, all the hot air gone. Juniper Davis, the queen of the perfectly manicured lawn, found her social life completely uprooted. Cyrus, surprisingly, filed for divorce the very next day, citing irreconcilable differences leading to public humiliation. He moved in with his sister for a while, and the last I heard he was thriving, teaching summer school and even joined a hiking club. Good for him. Juniper, on the other hand, was ostracized from every book club, PTA meeting, and neighborhood potluck. Her lavender-scented, glitter-dusted reputation preceded her. The perfect facade she had so painstakingly built crumbled faster than a stale cookie. She tried to apologize to me, of course. A tearful, rambling phone call where she blamed midlife crisis and feeling lonely. I just listened, politely, then said, "Oh, honey, I'm not a therapist. I'm just the woman who exposed your dirty laundry in public. Good luck with that." And then I hung up. Period. As for me, Rosemary Miller, life became lighter. The heavy weight of a dying marriage, the subtle gaslighting, the feeling of being invisible in my own home, it all lifted. Our house, once a silent testament to a crumbling facade, now felt like a sanctuary. Avery and Logan, after the initial shock and a few uncomfortable conversations, surprisingly adapted well. They saw their mom, not as a victim, but as a strong, intelligent woman who took control of her narrative. They watched me navigate the divorce proceedings with the same strategic precision I used to plan the bistro ambush. Brenda, my lawyer, was a total shark, and Thaddeus's legal team quickly realized they were outmatched. The financial settlement was, shall we say, generous. Enough for me to invest in my freelance graphic design business, take a few well-deserved trips, and maybe even finally get that new kitchen island I'd been wanting. I learned a lot from this whole secret garden debacle. I learned that sometimes the most devastating betrayals can lead to the most liberating awakenings. I learned that my sarcasm wasn't just a coping mechanism, it was a superpower. And I learned that while love might be blind, revenge has 20/20 vision, especially when paired with a good Google Calendar and a well-placed glitter bomb. I also learned that the American suburbia, with its pristine lawns and perfectly painted houses, often hides the most deliciously messy dramas. And sometimes, you just have to be the one to pull back the curtain. My life isn't a rom-com, and it's certainly not a tragedy. It's a darkly comedic chronicle of absurdity, and I'm the star, director, and narrator. I'm still Rosemary Miller, freelance graphic designer, mom of 2 amazing teenagers, and now a certified expert in public humiliation as a form of therapy. I still live in Maple Creek, Connecticut, but now I drive past the Oak and Ivy Bistro with a knowing smirk. I occasionally run into Cyrus, who always gives me a grateful nod. And I sometimes see Thaddeus, looking perpetually haunted, probably still smelling faint traces of lavender. The best part? I'm finally seen, not as Thaddeus Wilson's wife or Juniper Davis's best friend, but as Rosemary Miller, a woman who faced betrayal head-on, armed with wit, a wicked sense of humor, and a plan so brilliant it deserved a standing ovation. And trust me, I'm just getting started. Because sometimes, when life gives you lemons, you don't make lemonade. You make a Molotov cocktail and throw it at the people who gave you the lemons, and then you narrate the explosion with a perfectly dry martini in hand.